The Italian countryside stirred gently under the early morning sun, its golden light stretching across olive groves and terracotta rooftops. Mist curled over the hills like a silk scarf shrugged from the shoulders of a sleeping landscape. It was quiet, except for the occasional chirp of birds and the hum of distant crew vans winding through narrow roads. Isla stepped out of her trailer, clutching a paper cup of espresso, already lukewarm. Her dark sunglasses didn't hide the fatigue beneath her eyes or the subtle strain around her mouth, as if she were rehearsing restraint. Not lines. Emotion. Her steps slowed as she neared the main set. She was early, something she rarely bothered with unless she needed space to think. Or rather, someone to see. The image of the night before last flickered behind her lashes like a stubborn scene refusing to fade. Rain on cobblestones. Her dress soaked through. The scent of rosemary and damp earth. Rowan's hand on hers. The moment just before their lips had almost met. Breath mingling, eyes searching. And then, retreat. Cowardice, perhaps. Or self-preservation. She told herself it was professionalism. A line not meant to be crossed. But now, standing here beneath, a waking sun, she wasn't so sure. Rowan was already there. Of course she was. The woman was like clockwork and chaos stitched together. She sat cross-legged on a weathered bench, head bent over a soft leather journal that looked like it had survived a war. Her pen scratched in quick, deliberate bursts, then paused as she glanced toward Isla. Their eyes met. It was instant. A collision of memory and want. Then Rowan looked back down, as if ink were more trustworthy than eye contact. Isla cleared her throat. "You're up early." Rowan didn't look up. "Could say the same about you." Silence stretched between them like a wire pulled taut. One wrong move and it would snap. Isla gestured vaguely at the lot. "Wanted to run lines before the shoot." Rowan nodded. That scene today, the confrontation between Celeste and Anais, it's a tough one. Emotionally exposed. Isla took a sip of espresso, wishing it burned a little more. The rewrite helped. Rowan finally closed the journal and looked up. Did it? There it was. The thing between them, pressing beneath every syllable. Isla hesitated. Yeah. The part where Anais says, "Some things can't be spoken until someone sees you well enough to hear them anyway." That felt real. Rowan's gaze didn't flinch. It was. The world seemed to tilt slightly, the air thick with the echo of unsaid things. Isla opened her mouth, then closed it. She glanced away. "Well," Rowan said, rising, brushing her palms over her jeans. "Let me know if you need help running lines." She moved to walk past, and Isla turned quickly, voice softer. "Rowan." Rowan paused. That night, I didn't mean to walk away." Rowan gave her a faint smile, the kind that held both understanding and resignation. "But you did." And just like that, she was gone. Down the gravel path toward the wardrobe tent, her journal tucked under one arm, her heart, perhaps, tucked just as tightly inside. Isla stood alone, espresso cooling in her hand, wondering if she'd just missed her cue in the most important scene of her life. The sun was higher now, casting sharp light across the courtyard set, where crew members bustled around, hoisting equipment and rehearsing their routines like an unspoken choreography. Isla stood in her costume, a flowing vintage blouse and ankle-length skirt that caught the breeze, making her look more like a poem than a person. Marco leaned casually against the stone fountain, smirking beneath his aviator. Shades. His shirt was unbuttoned just enough to reveal a bronze, gym-toned chest, and he knew exactly where to stand, so the light hit him just right. "You look gorgeous today, baby," he drawled, not even trying to lower his voice. Rowan, standing behind. The camera monitor stiffened. Her pen tapped against her script with sharp, annoyed clicks. She glanced at Isla, who offered Marco a polite, tight-lipped smile before quickly turning her attention to her makeup artist. But Rowan saw it, the way Isla's eyes flickered briefly toward her, almost apologetically. "Try calling her by her actual name," Rowan muttered under her breath. Too quiet for Marco, but loud enough for the sound operator beside her to raise an eyebrow. Later, during a lighting reset, Isla approached Rowan while the rest of the cast wandered toward craft services. Rowan was staring into her journal, frowning at something she'd just crossed out. "Hey," Isla said gently. Rowan looked up. "Hey. I've been thinking about the monologue in scene 32. Isla continued, her tone cautious. "It doesn't quite land. There's power in it, but it doesn't feel like something Celeste would say. Not yet." Rowan blinked. "You want to rewrite it together?" Isla shrugged, but her eyes held something more vulnerable. "Only if you want to." They slipped into the old props room, the quietest corner of the lot. It smelled like mothballs and aged velvet, with high windows smeared by time and dust. Costumes hung like forgotten ghosts along the walls. A single lamp cast a soft golden pool over a cracked table. Rowan set her journal down and Isla pulled a chair beside her. They began with dialogue, light, careful, professional. But soon, their hands brushed as they reached for the same pencil. Laughter bloomed, hesitant at first, then warm. Isla leaned a little closer, the scent of her perfume, something woody and soft, wrapping around Rowan like a question. "Do you remember the first character you ever wrote who was gay?" Isla asked suddenly, eyes fixed on the script in front of them. Rowan looked up slowly. "Yeah. Her name was Violet. She was 17 and in love with her best friend. Wrote it in college." "What happened in the story?" "She kissed her. Just once. In a park under fireworks. But I was too scared to write the fallout, so I ended the story there." Isla smiled faintly. "That's the hardest part, isn't it? What comes after?" Rowan studied her for a long moment. "Isla, are you asking about Celeste? Or yourself?" Silence answered before Isla did. "I've spent a long time being afraid of my own reflection," she whispered. "Like if I looked too long, I'd see something that would ruin everything I've built." The air thickened. Rowan didn't speak. Instead, she reached out, slowly, and placed her hand over Isla's. No one pulled away. The moment was quiet, not dramatic, not full of sweeping music or declarations. Just stillness. A mutual breath held between two people beginning to trust that the other wouldn't let go. Outside the room, the set crackled with voices and footsteps and rolling camera carts. But inside this forgotten corner, time stilled. And the truth, fragile, trembling, took one step closer to being spoken. The makeup mirror reflected more than Isla's face. It held the weight of everything she had tried to forget. The dressing room was dim, quiet, the only light coming from the warm bulbs around the mirror's edge. She was supposed to be running lines, but the words blurred on the page. Her lips moved silently. The scripted monologue was about love, about fear and longing and the choice to finally leap. But all Isla could mouth was, "Do I deserve this?" She didn't mean the part, she meant all of it. Her reflection shifted, not with age, but with memory. She was 18 again, wide-eyed, hungry for success. Her cheeks still carried the flush of adolescence when she walked into the meeting with her agent, heart pounding. She had just wrapped her first lead role in an indie film that was gaining steam, and she thought, maybe, she could finally say it. "I think I might be gay," she had said, voice tremulous but proud. Her agent didn't miss a beat. "You're an actress, Isla. The public doesn't want complicated. They want you desirable. You say that out loud, and every love interest you play becomes a lie. And just like that, the door closed. She didn't say it again, not publicly, barely even to herself. Later that year, her lover, someone soft and secret and so patient, stood in the doorway of Isla's tiny apartment with a suitcase and tears in her eyes. "You'll always choose the camera over us," she said. Then she was gone. Isla never chased her. She only cried when the sun went down. Now, years later, Isla sat frozen in front of her reflection, lips still, the room impossibly stiller. Her emotional walls, carefully painted and weatherproofed, began to show cracks. The girl who almost came out. The woman who watched someone walk away. The actress pretending to be someone brave on screen. They were all the same person. And maybe, just maybe, Rowan saw her. All of her. Meanwhile, across the villa courtyard, Rowan sat curled on the edge of her rented bed, laptop open beside her but untouched. Her fingers hovered over her phone, her journal open across her lap, half filled with scribbled dialogue that now read more like confessions. She wasn't writing a scene. She was writing Isla. Her mind drifted to a different night, a different woman, Juliet, a theater director in London, brilliant, charismatic, utterly unavailable. Rowan had loved her with the kind of devotion that writers give to the characters. They can't save. But Juliet had needed someone who floated with her, someone who could dance in the fire and call it art. Rowan had stayed grounded, practical. The anchor, not the muse. She still had the texts. Sometimes she reread them at night, Juliet. You always want to explain everything. Some feelings don't have footnotes. Rowan. And you always want to float away. Who's going to catch you when you fall? Juliet. Not you, apparently. Rowan closed the app, the sting still present, though dulled by time. She glanced out the window, where the hills rolled into darkness, where Isla's light still burned faintly from her dressing room. Could Isla ever be someone who stayed, or was she just chasing? The rooftop of the centuries-old villa had been transformed. Strings of fairy lights swayed gently in the evening breeze, casting a warm golden hue over clinking glasses and quiet laughter. A jazz trio played softly in one corner, their melodies drifting lazily into the night air. It was a celebration. Halfway through filming, a milestone the crew had earned. Rowan lingered near the railing with a half-finished drink in hand, watching the gathering with a screenwriter's detachment. People blurred into dialogue. Gestures became subtext. Everyone wore masks, even at a party. Then Isla arrived. She moved like dusk, elegant, soft, almost unreal. Her dress was simple, silk, slate blue, backless, timeless. She wore no flashy jewelry, just a single silver ring and her hair in loose waves. The moment she stepped onto the rooftop, a hush fell over a few nearby conversations. Rowan's included. But Isla wasn't looking at them. Her gaze scanned the crowd once, then twice, landing briefly on Rowan. There was no smile, just a look like a question she was afraid to ask out loud. Rowan quickly turned away, her heart stumbling over itself. She spent the next half hour dodging Isla, talking to camera ops, clinking glasses with production assistants, feigning interest in a conversation about light rigs. But even with her back turned, she felt Isla across the space. Magnetic. Inevitable. "Rowan," someone called. It was Lena, one of the assistant directors, grinning as she grabbed Rowan's hand and pulled her into the informal dance circle forming near the band. "Come on, you've earned a moment of fun." Rowan resisted for a moment, then gave in, laughing, even swaying to the beat. She caught Isla watching her from the edge of the circle, sipping from a wine glass, that same unreadable expression on her face. A few songs later, Isla stepped forward and touched Rowan's wrist lightly. "Dance with me?" she asked, voice barely audible over the music. Rowan blinked. "Are you sure?" "Not at all," Isla said, eyes glinting. "But I want to." They moved to a quieter corner where the lights dimmed and the music shifted. A haunting acoustic cover of an old love song, the kind that dragged feelings out of you whether you were ready or not. Isla's arms wrapped loosely around Rowan's shoulders. Rowan's hands found her waist. They didn't speak. Their bodies swayed gently, breath sinking. The world shrank until it was only them, a slow orbit of want and fear. Isla leaned her cheek against Rowan's temple. "Do you ever feel like people love the idea of you more than the real you?" "All the time," Rowan whispered. "I'm not scared of the press," Isla said. "Not the cameras, not even the rumors. I'm scared of someone actually seeing me, the part I've hidden from everyone." Rowan's voice was like dusk itself, soft, inevitable. "Then let me look first." Isla pulled back slightly, her eyes wide and glassy. Rowan's hand moved up to her cheek, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Their faces inched closer. Breath mingled. Almost. Their lips hovered, achingly close, until... boom! A firework exploded in the distance, cascading in bursts of silver and crimson across the sky. Isla startled slightly, pulling back with a nervous laugh. "Maybe I've had too much wine." Rowan didn't respond immediately. She just smiled, steady and tender. But her eyes were glass. "Maybe," Rowan said softly, stepping back. "Or maybe the moment was just too real." Isla hesitated, then turned toward the crowd, where more fireworks began to erupt in the sky, each one a reminder of something beautiful and loud and fleeting. Rowan remained where she was, the echo of almost love lingering like smoke in her lungs. The next morning, the film set buzzed as usual, cables coiled, lights positioned, and coffee passed hand to hand like lifeblood. But something had shifted. Something no one could name, but everyone felt in the spaces between. Isla arrived later than usual, wrapped in sunglasses and silence. She gave no smiles, offered no commentary on her lines, and slipped into character like armor. Where she usually met Rowan's eyes during scene prep, now she looked past her, as if too much light would burn. Rowan noticed. Of course she noticed. She kept her focus buried in the script, making notes she didn't need and changing lines that didn't matter. But every time Isla turned away, it cut sharper than she was ready to admit. She regrets it. The dance, the almost kiss, the moment that had felt more real than anything they'd rehearsed. Rowan didn't say a word. Instead, she went back to her trailer and did what she always did when her heart cracked. She wrote. Not a scene, not a script. Something raw, unfiltered. A version of Celeste's final monologue. One that hadn't existed until now. I used to think love had to hide in the shadows, that it only counted if no one saw it. But now I know. It counts more when it risks the light, when it burns. The words bled onto the page, not from her head, but from her chest. By the time she printed the new draft and handed it to the producer, Rowan was shaking. An hour later, the producer knocked on her trailer door. "This new version," he said, holding the pages, eyes narrowed with curiosity. "It's raw. It's honest. Too honest." Rowan's jaw tightened. "Is that a problem?" "It's personal," he replied. "Doesn't read like fiction anymore." She stared at him, pulse racing. "It is fiction." A lie, clean, sharp, delivered with the precision of someone who'd been rehearsing her entire life. The producer nodded slowly and walked away, but something in his expression said he didn't fully believe her. Meanwhile, Isla sat perched on a stone wall near the edge of the lot, her heels dangling above wild grass and the smell of lavender in the sun. Marco sat beside her, for once not trying to be charming or funny. He sipped from a coffee cup and looked out over the vineyard hills, giving her space. Finally, Isla broke the silence. I almost kissed someone last night. Marco didn't react. She continued. Someone I shouldn't want. Someone who sees parts of me I pretend aren't real. Marco smiled, small and without judgment. Rowan? Her head snapped toward him, startled. You knew. I'm not stupid, Isla. You're different around her. You laugh quieter. Think louder. Isla looked away, lips pressing into a line. It's not safe. Marco nodded slowly. No, but it might be true, and you don't have to lie to yourself forever. She blinked fast, biting the inside of her cheek. But what if I ruin everything? The film, my image, her. Then you ruin it, he said simply, and you find out who was worth keeping through the ruins. For a moment, Isla just sat there, staring down at her trembling hands. Marco didn't touch her, didn't tell her it would be okay. He just sat with her, another person who'd known the cost of hiding too much for too long. Back inside her trailer, Rowan stared at the final monologue on her screen. The words didn't feel like fiction. They felt like her last hope whispered into a story no one else knew was real. And she wondered, for the first time in a long time, what it would take for someone to say them back. The set had been transformed for Isla's pivotal scene. A candlelit room. An open window. Wind whispering through gauzy curtains. The camera framed her in soft shadows, poised to capture a moment of confession. On screen, yes. But under it all, something more dangerous loomed. Everyone could feel it. The script called for her character, Celeste, to finally admit what she'd fought the entire film to suppress. Forbidden love, long hidden, too painful to name. The monologue Rowan had rewritten, the one the producer had called too personal, remained untouched. The words had bled truth, and now they demanded it in return. Isla stood on her mark, costume perfect, lighting flawless. But inside, something unraveled. She stared past the camera into imagined eyes, but her heart filled in the blanks with someone real, not her fictional lover. Rowan. The director called, rolling, and action. Isla inhaled deeply. The silence on set was thick, reverent. Then she began. I tried not to love you. I tried so hard I forgot how to breathe without pretending. I told myself it was easier this way. Safer. Cleaner. Her voice trembled. Real tears welled up, not the glycerin kind. Not staged. They came from years buried beneath rolls and red carpets and silences she'd been told were professional. But I see you now, all of you. And I don't want the safe version anymore. I want you, even if it ruins me. Her hand pressed to her chest, her voice catching. Because loving you is the only truth I've ever known. And I'm tired of lying to survive. The last word fell from her lips like a final exhale. The camera stayed rolling. But Isla wasn't acting anymore. She stood there, tears slipping freely, her entire body shaking not from the lines, but from everything she'd refused to feel. Until, now, behind the lights and crew, Rowan stood in the shadows, unseen by most. But her eyes never left Isla. She had heard those words before, in her own heart. She'd written them in private, not expecting them to be spoken like a confession that pierced the air between them. And now, hearing Isla say them, mean them, was like standing in front of a mirror, finally recognized, a single tear traced down Rowan's cheek. Cut, the director said quietly. No one moved. It was too sacred. Isla didn't blink, didn't breathe. She remained in character, or maybe no longer in character at all. She turned her head slowly, her eyes scanning the shadows, until they found Rowan. Their gazes collided, naked, wounded, too honest for the masks they still wore. Neither spoke, but in Isla's eyes was a question, a plea. Something like, "Did you hear me? Did you see me? Can you still want me, knowing this is all true?" Rowan's jaw clenched, her heart loud in her ears. She took one step back, then another. And then she turned, wordless, silent, and walked away before Isla could say a single thing. Behind her, Isla. The air in Isla's trailer was still, heavy with the scent of lavender oil and late summer dust. She hadn't planned to come back so soon after the scene, but something, instinct maybe, had pulled her there. Her hand hovered on the doorknob, for a moment before she pushed it open. Inside, nothing seemed out of place. Her costume lay draped over the chair, makeup brushes lined neatly beside the mirror, the empty water bottle from earlier still on the table. But then she saw it. A folded piece of paper, cream-colored and soft-edged, resting right in the center of the table like it had always belonged there. Her name was written across the front in a hand she'd come to know well. Slanted, deliberate, lowercase. Rowan. Isla's breath caught. Her fingers trembled as she reached for it. She unfolded it slowly, almost reverently, as if afraid the words might vanish if she opened it too fast. "Isla, this isn't a confession. You already know. I just can't stay close and not be seen. Not when you keep turning away every time we're about to matter. You made something real when you said those lines today. You were more than brilliant. You were honest. But I've written too many love stories that end in maybe. I don't want to be another ghost in the wings. I wish you could have kissed me when the world stopped watching." Resla stared at the paper. Once, twice, a third time. Her hands clenched it before she pressed it to her chest like it could stop her heart from splitting open. She sank onto the couch, curling inward, letter tight against her ribs, her breath coming in jagged waves. She hadn't expected Rowan to leave. Not like this. Not with silence between them like a locked door. Not with a goodbye that didn't scream or beg, but whispered, "I loved you. I saw you." And that wasn't enough. Hot tears spilled freely now. Not for the scene, not for her image, but for something far more fragile. What they could have been, if only she'd let herself be brave when it counted. Isla had performed love 1,000 different ways, but this time she'd felt it. And now, the curtain was falling. Too soon. Too quietly, and the woman who had written her most honest lines was already gone. Next day, Rowan doesn't show up on set. Isla reads the rewritten monologue again. Every word is a mirror. Final moment. Isla gets in her car, ignoring her call sheet. Her voiceover plays, "What if we all deserve to be seen just once by someone who refuses to look away?" She drives off, a letter in her bag, a destination unknown.